Upgrades. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another JVS movie review. Today, I'm bringing you a review of a film that I found very interesting because I'll just tell you the name and then we'll get into it. The name of this film is Your Host, and here's a quick synopsis. 4 friends get trapped in a sadistic game show, forced to outwit a twisted serial killer while racing against time. Every move brings them closer to freedom or a gruesome fate. And this is directed by D.W. Medoff, and it stars Jackie, Earle, Haley. Now, not seen Jackie in a lot of things of late, but this film here is very interesting in the way it formulates itself here. Your Host is, for lack of a better term, it feels like a Saw film, or a spinoff of a Saw film here, as we're introduced to 4 characters who we could care less about. That's the reason I didn't really talk about them. The 4 friends we are introduced to do not matter at all here. At all. They don't spend enough time developing these 4 characters, so there's really no need to dive into these 4 characters. They literally give them the most basic setup as they go off to a cabin, and then they're kidnapped, and then we get to the games. That is the way this plays out the most here. And the moment we get into the games, this is when we get into the gruesome. If you're into early 2000s horror, especially again the Saw films, some possibly at play a little bit here because of the gruesome nature of this, possibly the Hostel films, this will be the type of film for you. As we introduce to Jackie's character, Barry, who is throwing a game show with these 4 people here. And it literally starts off with a game of rock, paper, scissors that turns into the most sadistic game of rock, paper, scissors you could ever see here. This film is so gruesome. I literally can't say it enough just how gruesome this film is and how odd the setup is, because when you're introduced to these 4 characters, because you don't really care about them, you don't even really care about the very minimal story they attempt to give these characters. At the beginning of the film, literally none of that matters here. We're just thrown into this world where he is starting to torture these people, and we're not given a full explanation of what's going on here. So at the beginning of the film, all we get is a game show, torture games, and some of the most gruesome scenes you can ever see. One with a drill in someone's ear that is, my goodness, it was times where I had to turn my head and say, yeah, this may be just a tad bit too much for me. The saving grace for Your Host is when we get to the second half of the film and the full story is explained. And at first, I was willing to write this off as just a cheap Saw ripoff. But from the way the setup is, granted in Saw, it's normally the killer making the victims actually hurt themselves more than him hurting them. Here, it is very clear that Barry, who's played by Jackie, he's hurting you. You're going to follow through with his games here. And because there's no real backstory given to anything, you're kind of questioning exactly what's going on. When we get to the second half of the film, a backstory is revealed that to me is one of the best twists in a horror film I've seen this year, because the backstory reveal in this film completely changed my mind on the movie that I was watching. And once you get to that once you get to that change, I think it elevates this film to a level where you not only understand the gruesomeness of the film, but it develops a sympathy that you get for Barry in this film that you will not see coming. But it changes your perspective on everything you've seen. Now, DW, who the director of this film, I think he does an amazing job at setting up these kills. If you're going to do gruesome kills, you at least got to do them in the most creative ways humanly possible. This is some of the most creative kills you're going to see in a horror movie in the last couple of years. Not even Saw, especially the recent ones, have been able to get to the level of creativity that we get through the kills in this film. They are very creative here. And that is always a plus here, along with some solid, for a more lower budget horror film, a very solid mix of um, its cinematography here. It really works and it really pops off when you get to feel the tension on screen. I think that is a goal of most horror movies to be able to pull off. Here with your host, it manages to pull itself off, which makes it even better. And again, once you get through the second act of this film turns. And when it turns, it becomes so haunting of exactly what's going on here. I will not reveal it because I think that's something, as an audience member, you need to experience exactly that change and when that change happens. And when you develop, for most people, at least to me, develop the sympathy for Barry's character here. Jackie's performance here, all out, is sick, fun, twisted. It is great. This is a one-man wrecking show for me here. He does everything humanly possible to make you understand this psychopath that he's playing in this film. And it works wonders. He's funny when he's killing people at times. He's terrifying when he's killing people at times. It's a mixture of everything here. Unfortunately for the four friends here, none of them really matter. We're granted, it becomes clear when you get to that, again, that last half of the film, why. It doesn't really matter, but it really does feel like a bunch of setup here. It's not enough depth in those characters given, but we get so much depth in Barry's character, especially in the second half of this film, where it makes up for it, and you don't mind that you don't get to explore more about the other characters here. And you understand, you're here for a purpose. You're here to amp up a certain level. Again, that's one of the traits you do get from the Saw films, is that you're here to amp up certain things with these games that are going to have to happen and are going to have to take place. But just the creativity of it, along with an amazing performance by Jackie, and to me, again, one of the biggest emotional twists that you're going to get out of a horror movie this year happens in your host. And again, it changed my perspective on the movie that I watch. And I know it's going to change most audiences' perspective. And I think when that change happens, you get to appreciate this film on a different level than what you just walked into initially. But your host, which is currently available on all VOD platforms, out of a possible 10, I'm going to give your host a 7.5 out of 10. I'm going to be honest. I would have, again, called this a cheap ripoff of Saw. I would have been nowhere near the score that I just gave this film until you get to that second half of this film. And it, again, when it hits, it changes you completely. And you appreciate not only just Barry as a character, you appreciate Jackie's performance even more when you get to the second half of this film. This is one of the most satisfying third acts you're going to get out of a horror movie this year. This is definitely something that, to me, you can consider a hidden gem because, for one, this dropped on VOD when this film, to me, has the quality to be released in theater. So that was shocking enough to me. But because of the quality you get and because you can see this at home, I think this is one of those films you really need to check out, especially if you're a horror movie fan, especially, when horror movie season here, late October. If you're looking for a hidden gem to check out, this is definitely the movie to check out. But again, check it out. It's currently available on all VOD platforms. This has been another JVS movie review. Peace, people.